Before we kick this off, I want to tell you about something important that I think you'd like to hear about. It's not an ad, so please don't skip. You might be able to help. You'd all be aware of the horror unfolding in the Ukraine at the moment. And as animal lovers, it's likely that you'd have noticed the heartbreaking images and stories about how the animals in Ukraine are suffering alongside their owners. And you've likely felt powerless and frustrated about it. But we can help. Just before recording this, I had a conversation with Dr. Ivan Zak, most famously the brains behind SmartFlow, or actually most famously a previous guest on the Vet Vault. Now, Ivan's surname is actually Zakharenkov, and that's a Ukrainian surname. So this catastrophe in his homeland is obviously very close to his heart. So Ivan and his team at his new venture, Galaxy Vets, have created a not-for-profit arm called the Galaxy Vets Foundation. And their first mission is aimed at the pets of Ukraine. So how can you help? 2 ways. Number 1, give money. Always helpful. Go to galaxyvets.foundation or just click on the link in our show description. All the money goes directly to veterinary organizations and volunteers and is used to provide food, shelter, and vet care. But there's another really useful gift that you can give. Your skills. The foundation has set up a telehealth service for the pet owners of Ukraine. As you can imagine, they have very limited access to veterinary care at the moment, and I'm sure they'd often be in desperate need for some help for their beloved pets. And that's just the kind of help that you can give. So jump on the link, give some of your time, give some love. I know this is what you do best. And now you have an opportunity to go global. And yes, there's a translation service integrated in the system. Okay, let's get to our episode. I'm going to start this one with a bit of a rant. We like to do optimism on the Vet Vault. And because of all the amazing people we speak to, I tend to wear rose-tinted glasses where I think here in Vetland in 2022, everything is awesome. Or at least I think it's getting a lot better. But the reality is that there's still room for improvement. So here's my rant. Last week I had a conversation with a new grad who, 6 months ago, when she was about a month out, was thrilled with a new job and full of energy and ideas for her patients and for the clinic she works for. When I spoke to her last week, though, I recognized it. That look. That sideways smile that says, yeah, it's fine, I'm fine. I mean, I'm tired because we're so busy and we don't really get breaks and I leave an hour after I'm supposed to, so they're 11-hour shifts, so I miss all my social events. But we're just so busy, but that's okay. Yes, I've spoken to the boss, but they said it's not really a problem. Yes, I'm having my pay review next week, but they gave my colleague only a $2 an hour pay increase. But they say it's already over the reward, so I'm not very hopeful. But they say money's so tight, but I don't understand that because we're so busy. But that's okay. I'm still enjoying it. And I know that you won't be there a year from now. I know this because it was the same shit 20 years ago when I was a new grad. Or maybe she'll still be there, but she'll be resentful. And that thought will start niggling at her. You know the one. I think I studied the wrong thing. And her enthusiasm will wane. So whether she stays and becomes a part of the problem, or she goes and leaves them short-staffed and even more under pressure, the cycle perpetuates. Can we all agree that we need to break that cycle? So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we listen to the Vet Vault because that's where we get ideas and inspiration. But what then? And right here is where I think a lot of us get stuck. Because we try to do it ourselves. And we do that because we're such clever little monkeys and so good at problem solving. And to be fair, we really are. But we think that we can and should solve every problem ourselves. Hands up if you've x-rayed and diagnosed yourself or a colleague or a child in the past year. You can't see me, but my hand is up. So whether it's personal stuff, diet or fitness or well-being, or whether it's clinical or whether it's business stuff, we figure shit out and we think we do a great job, but often we don't. If my new grad friend's boss was doing a great job, they wouldn't be teetering on the edge of losing yet another great vet. So maybe sometimes we need a bit of help. Our guest for this episode spends his life helping people and breaking pointless cycles and excavating people out of ruts. Dr. Sam Bowden is a former practice owner and a serial entrepreneur in and outside of vet. He's had multiple successes and, as you'll hear in this episode, some notable less successful ventures, or as he calls them, lessons. He's the co-founder and CEO of Accelerate Practice Academy, a coaching service for veterinary and other health practices. And he's devoted the last 12 years of his career helping practice owners increase their happiness, work-life balance, and profitability. But as you'll hear in this episode, it's not just numbers and sales and management with Sam. It's about mindset. That's where we pause and what we explore in this conversation. We talk about what drives us, our primary needs as individuals and as a species, about why it's sometimes a good thing to hit rock bottom, but also about strategies to keep you away from rock bottom. Sam flips the narrative about our profession being in a crisis and points out that the current situation is ripe with opportunity. And he gives us some ideas on how to find those opportunities. We get practical with possible solutions for the I can't find any vets or nurses problem. How you can leverage your skills and talent to benefit yourself and your workplace, even if you're an employee and not the owner. Sam gives us some very good advice on how to select a coach and much, much, much more. It's a corker, and I think you will get a lot out of it. Now, before we jump in, if you've listened to our short housekeeping episode before this one, and if you haven't, have a quick listen. This is one of the episodes where we've got an affiliate deal with our guest. Sam has some really innovative programs under the banner of Accelerate Practice Academy that can help practices to, well, accelerate their business. But as you'll hear in this conversation, it's about a lot more than business for Sam. Business is just a part of the foundation. So if you listen to this and you think, man, I like this guy, I think he can help me, have a listen at the end of this episode where we'll put together some details about what they can do for you. Okay, let's jump in with Dr. Sam Bowden. Should we start with just a little bit about you, Sam? So you've had a very interesting and varied career. You've gone from vetting, standard vetting, to practice ownership, a couple of practices. You had a completely non-vet related business. Was it Steelworks or something like that?
Sheet metal factory. Cracking idea.
Yeah, which didn't go well, right? That wasn't a winning business. And then you started the Buyers Group, which was a success. And then there's the coaching aspect of it. It's so many facets to your career. And I'd love to know why. What drives you or what drove you to explore all those different options? Because the other option that you see very often is somebody starts practice, that's your thing. You build it, you create it, you in that comfort zone and sit back and you can be content in that. Why is that not for you?
Well, I think everybody has, they talk about the 6 human needs that people have, and we all have the same 6 human needs, but we value them differently. And one of the human needs is growth. And so I value growth very highly. And I've just found that over a period of time, you'll kind of grow up to a certain level in what I call a game. So say it's a vet practice or it's not so much sheet metal factories. That was just a bad idea and a lot of pain, a lot of great learnings from it. But we'll talk a bit more about that. But I think because growth's one of my key drivers, if I don't feel like I'm growing, I don't feel satisfied and fulfilled. And, they say one of the sort of 4 different elements to human happiness, and one of those is a sense of progression, moving forwards, which is that growth thing. And if you don't have that sense of growth, be it in your business or your personal life or your health, or your finances or whatever, you'll start feeling a bit frustrated, a little bit itchy. Mm-hmm. And so what I found for myself is I can remember when I had my first vet practice in Western Australia, and that was going well. And we sort of took that from nothing to, it was doing very well financially over about 4 years. But I just sort of start getting this itch and I get a little time to move on. So, I bounced from that into another vet practice, which I actually bought sight unseen while I'm surfing in Costa Rica. Maybe we should just run a session on surfing, Hubert. That'd be fun.
Yes.
And, so I sort of bounced from that. And then while I was doing that, took on the sheet metal factory, and that didn't go so well. And I was just looking for a way to get ahead financially. And the sheet metal factory was just a bad idea that I went, sheet metal factory, stainless steel, Gold Coast, what could possibly go wrong? And fabricating stainless steel products. And because that was going so badly, it kind of forced me in this area of personal development, because I was just drowning. I was just emotionally and financially just stuffed. And so out of that, the buying group sort of popped around as a good idea, that other people's idea. It wasn't my idea, it was someone else's idea. I always say I've never had a good idea. I just hear them, but I'm good at implementing. And so, then the buying group sort of popped out. And then I found that my vet practice, after a while, it wasn't stimulating me. The thought of keeping on consulting felt very constrictive to me. But I just loved helping, when I was helping others grow their business. That was just my kind of thing. So we sort of grew this buying group, and then the mentoring started. And so once the buying group got to a certain size, and I just went, I just don't like, I feel caged again. But mentoring and helping others create their own ideal scenarios, that's what excited me. So I think, in answer to your question, what drives you, I think it's the desire for growth and evolution. And we all actually have this desire for growth and evolution, because that's what, as humans we evolve. And I'm just probably good at listening to that. And when I start feeling frustrated, I realize it's because I'm not evolving. And so the next game often turns up when you start opening your eyes and going, well, what is it that really lights me up?
So is that massive desire for growth, and this might be a personal question for me, is it a curse or is it a blessing to have that very strong desire? Like it could be the next shiny thing syndrome. You'll be seen as that, because people talk about mastery, and to master something truly, you've got to stick at it and do it and do it and do it. I heard a great saying the other day that said, the enemy of success is not failure, it's boredom. And I was like, oh, crap, that's me. I get bored of stuff. I move on. How do you experience it? Is it a blessing for you?
It's both, mate. I identified this a few years ago. It was about 6 or 7 years ago. I was at a big event, a Tony Robbins event, and they're talking about your primary question. We all have a primary question that drives everything we do. And it's developed very, very early on in your life from what they call a pain generator. So something happened and you develop meaning to it. The meaning that I'd put to it, and my primary question was, how can I improve this? So what I'm thinking all the time in everything I'm looking at is, how can I improve my business? How can I improve myself? How can I improve my relationship? I'll be washing up the dishes and I'm thinking, how can I do this more efficiently? So that part is the curse, because, you think, what's good about it? Well, good things is, of course, you're looking to improve and grow, and that's good. The downside is you never felt any peace, because everything always needs fixing. Like, I can walk across a lawn and find the one weed in the lawn. I just see it. My brain's just going, oh, you can fix that bit. So really, I had to kind of learn to change my primary question to, how can I appreciate this moment even more and add value to it? So I could kind of keep the bit that was good, which was, I wanted the growth, but I also wanted peace. And I noticed this in a lot of people. The growth is there, and it becomes addictive, but they're always almost frantically chasing the next thing. And that was me. I call it the bright, shiny object. I was like, ooh, that's exciting. What about this? What about that? And that created its own challenges. So I think it's both. You need to keep the good bit of growth, but you need to figure out how to bring peace into your life, that if you never improved anything, that's okay as well.
So how did you find that peace? Because it's easy to say and maybe not so easy to do.
Yeah. I think it comes back to the belief that I have, that everything's perfect as it is. So whether you do something or not, it's perfect. You can appreciate it for what it is, and you can look to improve it. But if you don't, that's okay. The universe is, 13.8 billion years old. And everything has had to happen perfectly in the perfect time for you and I to be sitting here in different parts of Australia having a conversation on technology. And it started with nothing. Who are we to say this should happen or that shouldn't happen? I mean, I find that hilarious. I've been with my universal knowledge of 49 years. How would I know more than some kind of intelligence has been going for 13.8 billion years in absolute perfection? So I think I almost ridicule myself, going, don't take yourself so seriously, Sam. If you think you got an idea, maybe you'll do it and maybe you won't. It actually doesn't matter. What's the purpose of being here is literally just to have an experience. And I think it's just to evolve and experience life, essentially, with the good things and the bad things, and as much as you can without judgment, because judgment is, this is good, or I think that's bad. Who are we to say what's good or what's bad? It is what it is because it happened that way. So I think it was sort of a multitude of these things, and maybe aging a little bit, I let go of the hunt, the chase. It's still in me, but I can enjoy some hunting, but I also enjoy the eating bit too. So I can sit back and just, go surfing or go fishing or hang out and enjoy that without that incessant desire to be doing more and growing, which it used to be me.
Is it easier to do that on the other side of, and this is quotation, success? Because you reach
Mm.
success to some degree, whether well, let's put it out there financially. I don't know your financial situation, but I'm sure you've done well enough that the primary needs are taken care of. So
Yeah.
that push for the hunt for, well, there's not enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. Is it easier once you get to that point to go, right, I can draw a line and say, well, that's enough. Now I can get more picky with how I perceive things and not wake up every morning with going, I have this shortage and I need to go and work harder
Yeah.
or come up with new ideas.
Yeah, that one of the most common human fears is scarcity, and that comes from, oh gosh, I'm gonna, essentially your mind is thinking there's a lack of opportunity. If I miss this opportunity, I'll miss out. One of my original mentors is actually a great friend of mine. He's a guy in real estate, a guy by the name of Gordon Douglas, an incredibly successful guy. Who knows what he's worth? But he said to me one day, he said, Sam, take care of the money, and then the game gets really interesting. And what he meant by that is just make the sort of like figure out how much money you need to actually live. So you're going to have a cracking life no matter what. Just make that amount of money, get on with it, make it. He said, because after it, you do move into lower need where it's not about survival then, it's more about fulfillment. So I think it is easier on the other side. I think people say, oh, that's all, just be it first. And that's the be do have. That is very relevant, but I find it's easier to be more patient when you know that everything's, financially you're taken care of. Now, look, I'll be honest, I was very driven financially because I wanted options in my life. I didn't want to have to say no because I didn't have the time or I didn't have the money. So, a friend rang me up the other day and wants to go heli skiing. We're shooting over to New Zealand for a week. In fact, I think we might nearly bump into you over there, I believe.
Yeah.
And just the fact that you can say, yep, and you've got the time and the finances to do it, I think that allows you to have a great experience. So that was always the game I was playing is, right, I knew how much financially I needed to make, but then I went, the financial game's done. What's ironic is once you reach that and you're not chasing it, it actually becomes easier. You actually make more. And a lot of the work we do with people is to get them to the place where they're financially taken care of. Because then once you've got your business at that level, if I sold it, I'd have this amount of money, I'm done. You actually do relax more. And it's like you can appreciate life more for what it is rather than I'll be happy when. And I think the I'll be happy when, man, I just see people just driving themselves so hard. And it's crazy because life's passing them by and they're chasing this happiness thing as I'll be happy when. And I can tell you, you get to financial freedom and you just go, is this it? Like I can remember the moment we were financially free. I was over at Stratty and I was over there with some mates and we're having a bonfire down the beach at about 5:30 in the afternoon, a winter's day. It's about this time of year. And I got the phone call, yep, funds are transferred, you're done. And I was like, cool. Now I've been chasing this thing my entire life, this almighty financial freedom thing. And I get it. And I went, oh, cool, thanks. Hung up. And I went, is that it? This is so disappointing. I mean, I'm waiting for the fireworks. I'm wanting the cheer squad and everything. I just walked down and grabbed a beer with a mate and we just carried on as we were. And it was really weird. It really hit me that, I'll be happy when doesn't happen because I got there and it didn't really change anything. I was more comfortable there, but it didn't sort of change the way I felt and thought and things like that. All that happened is then you start to realizing that what is it that I really love doing and what do I really want to do? What fulfills me the most? And when you're doing that, I say to say I stopped working years ago because the stuff that I do is just pure. I mean, I do it. It's just joy. I just love it. It's just fun. It's fulfilling. And, half the time I'm doing half the stuff I'm chatting for people for hours just for pure entertainment's sake. And I think that's probably what Gordy meant when he said, take care of the money, then the game gets really interesting.
That's great. There's a lot in that, a lot to unpack. So you mentioned earlier in the conversation, Sam, that you, at a point, was it around the sheet metal factory, you started doing a lot of self-improvement work. Was that the trigger? Because when you listen to stories of a big change for somebody to go from living, let's call it thoughtlessly, or in the rut or something like that, or going through the motions, stuck in the matrix, plugged into the matrix, to suddenly a switch flicking and a big change and chasing the thing they love. I'm going to do this thing. It's often associated with an event, and often a traumatic event, painful event. Somebody's dying, or a near death, or a disease, or massive failure, business failure, or something like that. What was that your turning point, or was there no such specific point in your story?
It was completely that.
Okay.
Completely that. So it was the sheet metal factory. So what happened was I bought the vet practice and things were going. It was a very small clinic. I bought it sight unseen while I'm surfing in Costa Rica. So that's not so smart. So listeners, please probably want to check it out a bit more than that. And a mate of mine flew down and said, "Oh, look, mate, it'll need a bit of elbow grease, but she'll be right." And I remember turning up to this place and where they pulled up there, I thought it was a joke. And it was this lime green painted building. And, I remember walking in and there was an X-ray machine hanging off the wall and it didn't work. And the developer was a litter tray in the toilet. And you'd go in the toilet and been blacked out and you'd do your X-rays in there. And the dental kit was literally a flathead screwdriver with a little notch out the end. That was the dental kit for knocking calculus off. So I turned out and I went, "You muppet, what have you done? Like, you idiot."
Well, the shocking thing is, in today's market, that's probably worth millions, that practice.
yeah, it could be. And I remember, I was very, it came out of a deceased estate and I bought it very cheaply. I remember going down and trying to get a loan for $25,000 to buy this thing. And they went, "No." But they'd give me a loan for a Holden car for 35 grand. I thought it started my distaste for banks. But what happened, I'm working really hard and I thought, this will go well. And it just wasn't moving ahead. So I bought this sheet metal factory, which was it was sold with management. And I thought, great, we'll buy that. That'll give me a passive income. Well, that was nature's way or the universe's way of saying, "Righto, Sam, you're about to get a few life lessons here." And it literally put me into depression. So I didn't want to talk to anyone. We were losing money hand over fist. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was pretty cocky back then, to be honest. And that's probably why I did it. I thought I'll be able to run these two businesses. And as a result, I remember I'd go to bed just feeling, I had this sick feeling in my gut for like 18 months. And, I felt, I could remember it was like 2:00 in the morning. I had what's called a snap point. And this is sort of when you get to the point where you just go, "I just can't take it any longer." It's like human beings will take stuff to a certain level and finally one day they'll go, "Nah." And I remember thinking at that point in time, I would have happily taken 60 grand a year for the rest of my life if only this pain would go away, just this emotional pain. I just thought I'd screwed everything for my family forever. And I just swore at that point. I just went, "I'll do whatever it takes. God, I will do whatever it takes." And if I ever hear people at that point, I get kind of excited because what's happening at that point in time is your ego has crushed. It's gone. And now you're completely open. It's almost like being a newborn. And what happened is I got an email, came in my inbox, and it was from this guy called Steve McKnight, who's a property investor. But I'd signed up to this because I'd bought a book. I'd read his book. And there you could, sign up to an email to get tips and tricks. I'd never looked at an email for 2 years from him. But I just get this email that said, "Something amazing has happened, ... That was the subject line. And I went, "Huh." And I read this and it was about this guy, Brendan Nichols, who could, he's running an event called How to Make Stacks of Cash. And I went, "Oh my gosh, do I need to know that now?" And that was a turning point. It was like that 2:00 in the morning when I just simply refused to take this any longer. And then things just sort of lined up. Like that email came and I went, "Okay, I'm going to go to this event." And I didn't have any money to go. I rang up the promoter at the time. I rang up Steve McKnight and said, "It says here I can get my money back if it's no good. Is that true?" And he went, "Yep, you come and see me. I'll write you a check." So I was so nervous about spending a cent that I'm double checking everything. Flew down on frequent flyer points with the practice because I didn't have any money. Paid for the hotel with frequent flyer points. And when I went to that event, I walked back. It was a 2-day event. After the first day, I walked back to my wife and I said, "It's going to be okay." And it was like someone had showed me a parallel universe of business, of life, of ways of thinking and being that I'd just never been exposed to before. And from that day, that was my starting point. And I realized that the results that you get is a result of the way you think and the way you feel. Change those two things and your results change. So I went on this gluttonous binge of personal development for like 5 or 6 years. And I was always the guy, I'd go and crew at any event because I was like, if I crew, I don't have to pay for it. So I'd get the benefit of seeing what was going on. And I'm asking, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Because I'm wanting to learn as much as I can. And as a result of that, we started turning my practice around really, really quickly. And it became one of the fastest growing practices in Australia for 5 years straight. From this little clinic, and it still didn't end up as a massive clinic, but it was very profitable. But what I was doing, I was learning all this stuff from outside the industry and bringing it into my practice and testing it. I was using it as a laboratory. But what really changed was not my practice, it was actually me. And it was through this immersion in personal development that has really created the life that we've got now. And he did one of these things that I think is a really powerful thing. We're at that event, and I've still got the piece of paper written down. And they said, I want you to write down where you're going to be 4 years from today. And I've written it down, and I can even memorize it. So this was back in 2006. And it was August 2006. And I said, in 4 years from this, I'll be financially free, working in something I love doing because I want to, not because I have to. Now, good conference junkie, go to it, put my notes aside, never look at it again. When we sold the vet practice, so the Twin Towns Vet Clinic, we kind of built it up and we ended up selling it because I'd started a buying group in the meantime. And I remember throwing out, when you're cleaning out and getting rid of everything, and I pulled out, I was like, my old conference notes, and I flicked through and I pulled it out and I went, oh my gosh. And at that point in time, it gave us financial freedom. So basically, we'd paid off our house, we had a few $100,000 in the bank, and we were debt free, and I'd started doing this buying group that I just loved doing. And I looked at it; it was 1 month off being exactly 4 years. And it gives me goosebumps even telling that story. But the power of an intention, when you have an idea, by the time you write it down, the likelihood of that occurring, man, it goes through the roof. I remember a friend of mine, Michael Archnell. He said, we're talking about someone who wanted to leave the practice because it wasn't working well. He goes, just write their name in the back of the diary. I said, what does that mean? He said, just try it. So anyway, I wrote the name of this person I wanted to leave in the back of my diary, and guess what? They left. I went, how does that work? And he said, I don't know, I've been using it for 25 years. It's amazing. So I was at a conference one day and I said, hey, Arch, have you ever tried putting a date on it? He's like, I'll try that. So I get this phone call from him about 3 weeks later, and this guy's in stitches. I said, what are you doing? No, it's about 6 months later. He goes, you're not going to believe this. He said, I wrote down someone's name in the back of the diary, and so that I couldn't fake it, I had my practice manager witness it, and I put the date and the time that they'd leave. He said they left 5 minutes. They came to their resignation without me saying anything 5 minutes before the cutoff time I'd put in there. So I think that was, the big personal development thing was the power of intention is being clear on what you want and why. You don't need to know how. It turns up.
So if you work for Sam, and you're worried about your role in his business, don't go look at his diary. Look at that back. If your name's there, oh shit.
What's funny is I tested this. I was running an event, and I don't know, there's probably 150 people there, and I talked them about writing their name in the back of the diary, almost as tongue-in-cheek, and I thought, I'll see what happens. And the next week, I'm just getting all these phone calls going, you're not going to believe it. This person just left. So now, like in the masterminds that we run, it's just standard protocol. Okay, name's in the back of the book. Everyone knows what that means.
That snapping point that you talk about has always fascinated me because it's a very painful point to have to get to. Is there a shortcut? Is there a way that you can emulate or simulate that snapping point that you can make that change before you hit the depths, or is that a necessity? Is that part of the hero's journey that you have to be broken down before you can rebuild?
I think there's different types of people here, but it's a fascinating question because I've spent my life trying to create programs and systems that stop people getting to where I got to because I was pretty low. Like when I think about it, it can bring up pain. I'm grateful for it. It was a magnificent moment in my life because it humbled me completely. And what it allows me to do is look at anybody in any situation and say, trust me, let's just go on this journey. It'll be okay. And it always is okay. What I've observed is that there's people that are what we think called moving forward people. So what they're looking for is they're looking for the opportunity rather than moving backwards people. Moving backwards people are looking to avoid pain. So statistically, about 95% of the population is moving backwards. That's why insurance is so successful. They insure something to avoid potential pain. Moving forward people do things for benefit, not to avoid pain. So I think there are some people I've observed, they jump on board coaching and training programs. They get a business, they go, I just need to learn how to do this. And it's just a lot smarter way to do it. So there absolutely are people. Is my realization is stop trying to figure out everything yourself, Sam. If you want to know something, find someone who's already done it, pay them, because that will save you years and years, a lot of money and a lot of pain. Sadly, the majority of people, I have a saying, I say people choose to struggle. You can watch their struggle and I can say, I can absolutely guarantee in 12 months' time, if we work together, your life will look remarkably different. And there's no ego. It's just a result of a process that we've used literally hundreds and hundreds of times, and it just works. But for some people, they have to get to that low point where their ego leaves. Because the ego is a lot of the time saying, I'll figure this out myself. We're smart. We should be able to figure it out ourselves. And that was absolutely me, completely me. I thought I was very clever, Dick. But if you're in a low place, there's opportunity there. It's actually a gift. So the thing is, they say, if you're going through hell, don't stop, keep going. But often you need to be in a certain amount of pain to actually stop and listen, because the purpose of pain is to get you to pay attention. You put your hand on a stove and burn it, is to get you to pay attention. If you're doing something in your business and it's causing you pain, can't find staff, not making any money, really stressed, it's all just a universal tap saying, hey, what you're doing is not working. There's a different way. If you don't listen, you just get a bigger tap and then a bigger tap. And this is when people start having heart attacks. And some people keep doing the same thing. So the purpose of pain is actually to serve you. So for some people, they're more open to it. So nowadays, do I get to snap points? I'm really, I pay attention a lot more, probably because I had a snap point. When I start experiencing frustration or things aren't working, I'm like, okay, whoa, what's going on here? In fact, I've been on a call with a mindset coach this morning that deals deep in emotional stuff to find out why I'm experiencing certain things. So some of us just need to have that lesson to get us to pay attention, and then we learn, okay, next time, don't get so painful. Take a different approach early on. And what I've found is if you do that, you'll experience more flow in your life. Things will just magically happen without you figuring out. But before, Sam was like, I'm the clever dude. I'll figure out, I'm going to make it happen. And they say, if you ever want to make God laugh, tell her your plan. And that was pretty much me.
Are we worse at it as vets? At the, I'm smart, I'll figure this out. Do you think so? As a group, I've heard other business coaches or things like that who coach a bunch of different organizations say, yeah, vets are pretty stubborn. Like we're used to figuring it out ourselves.
I think so, but I think that's true of any tertiary education you do where you're told you're smart. So GPs are even worse. So doctors, we coach doctors and we coach, podiatrists and human surgeons, and they're all the same. I'm smart, I should be able to figure this out. It's the ego. Essentially, the more open you are, the faster and easier it goes. So what I find, I always say to people, if you knew, you'd be getting the result now. But I think it is, I don't know if it's vets specifically, working in any medical field, they've all been told the same thing, oh, you're really smart. And part of really smart becomes an identity that we protect, that we want to act like someone thinks smart. To me, smart is someone who goes, I don't know. Let me quickly find someone who does know, rather than I'll figure it out myself, because that just takes me so long and it's so expensive, that time lost. So I think there's also a part that we've been schooled to say, if you don't know, that's bad. If you think about tests, hey, here's a test, what'd you get? I got 3 out of 10. Well, you're dumb, that's not good. So we tend to fight this, no, I'm smart, and often hide even our mistakes or things that didn't work out. because we see those things as bad, as opposed to that's how you learn to walk, by things not working out. Then you tried a different strategy and tried a different strategy, we'll learn how to walk.
I like that you said about the test there, the failing of the test. It comes back to what you said earlier about the pain. And that's a bit of a mind shift for me, is to go, that pain's not bad. Because you talked about running away from the pain. We want to run away from it. To go, well, actually, pain's not bad. It's just a way to learn. It's the same thing with a test or anything in life. To go, well, that's not that hurt to fail, but instead of going, well, I'm never going to do that again because that really hurt, to say, well, how am I going to grow from this? That's really nice. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a reframe that there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. And when you reframe that you can't fail, you only learn, it'll allow you to have a go at more things. I see a lot of people looking at opportunity and they don't do it because their thought is, what if I fail? And because of our cultural upbringing, we see failure, and all failure is it didn't work out the way that I thought it should. That's what we perceive failure to be. If we viewed it as, well, I can't fail because I've got an idea, I'm going to try it, and it'll either work out the way I thought or not. Now, if it didn't work out the way I thought, awesome. I'm one step closer to finding out what does work. And it will give you a sense of freedom to have a swing at so much more stuff when you know you actually can't fail. You'll learn a lot. Like, I look at the sheet metal factory and go, was that a failure? Well, no, it was a gift. Now, obviously it was meant to happen because it did happen. I didn't enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. It was some pretty low period of my life. But what happened? I didn't fail. I learned more. You learn more when things don't work out than when they do work out. You know, I invested in, so I'd made some money from the UVG, from when we'd sold the UVG, and it was financially free. I went, cool. And, made some investments and thought I was pretty smart at those too. So Sam gets another universal tap. And I remember investing like a considerable sum of six-figure figures into her shares that went to zero. And gone. And that kind of hurt a little bit. And that got my attention. And so what I realized, but I went, I haven't failed. What do I need to learn? I went, oh my gosh, Sam, you need to learn investor science. Technical science, business science. Now it's time to learn investor science, a very, very different mindset and skill set completely. So for the last 3 years, that's what I've been doing. As a result, the investments go better and better and better. So everything that happens is, if your viewpoint is it's designed to serve you, and you don't go, that's good, that's bad, it's just everything's designed to serve you, then you just see the things that don't work out as learnings and ways of serving you in your journey of evolution.
All right, pain. Let's talk about pain. Let's bring this back to our profession specifically. It's a profession in a bit of pain to some degree, right? There's almost nobody I speak to, and this is globally, in the profession who, they're fine. I don't think people sound burnt out, but they're tired. Everybody's saying, I can't find staff, can't find nursing. We're working double shifts. We can't get a break. We're just looking forward to that. When are we going to get a break, sort of a thing? How are we going to apply? Do we want to be philosophical or practical first? How are we going to fix this?
Well, I think you need to do both, because if you give someone a strategy, hey, do this, you'll run into their mindset that'll say, I can't, and here's why. So I think if we go, continuing the line of thought, the purpose of pain is get you to pay attention. In my view, this is the biggest single opportunity that we're ever going to see. What's happening right now. Why? Because we're in perturbation, which is that pain point. It's like, if you take peat moss, and you put on a lot of pressure for a long period of time, what happens? It becomes coal. If you put coal on a massive heat, massive pressure for a long period of time, what happens? It becomes a diamond. So this is the natural process of thermodynamics, which, the word is perturbation, that the purpose of pressure and over time is actually to allow things to evolve. So what I'm seeing right now is, in the industry, there's been a big increase. I think it was about, in the last 2 years, 32% of households got a new pet. Now, so of course there's going to be a strain on services. And it's not just vet. I mean, you're seeing it in GP land and dentists, and it's everywhere, that there's this massive increase in demand for services. And at the same time, we've got this attrition of vets that's been going on endemically for years. But what's happened is there's been enough vets coming through that we've been able to stick to the same business model because I'll just employ someone else. What's happening now it's shifted the other way because the staff and employed people are going, well, if it's not a place I want to work at, well, there's so much opportunity, I'll just go somewhere else. What's going to be happen is the business model is now being questioned completely. And I think this is, if we look at the burnout rate of vets in our profession, we just haven't been listening for long enough. And it's just the universal taps have just got bigger. Now we're getting sledgehammers. And I think the opportunity is a shift in business model completely fixes the problem and becomes a very obvious solution. And I think in 5 years' time, everyone will go, I can't believe we used to do it like we used to do it. So I think that the pain that people see is just, it's change. I don't like what's happening. I've got a lot of work. That's good. I've got plenty of money, but crikey, I just can't get a break. Like, well, why do you keep doing things the same way? Or I can't employ another vet. Yeah, I know. So why don't you look at your model and go, what's a model that would work better? And a great way to help people do this is ask what's called a directed question. So it's a question to your subconscious. And I went through this way back when I had my vet practice. I couldn't find a vet. I was on the Gold Coast, no after hours, couldn't find another vet to work for me. And I went, right, I'm not prepared to cut back and say no to clients. So I asked myself a directed question and slept on it, which was this: how could I increase by 50% without needing another vet and without decreasing my client's experience? And what happens is when you ask a better question, you get a better answer. So right now, here's the focus, and this is why it's causing pain. Everyone's going, this is the story that everyone's telling. You can't find vets. You can't find nurses. I mean, you must have heard this so many times. I know you're at the AVA conference and there was a whole, panel around you can't find them. So what's your reality going to be? If you keep telling yourself long enough, whatever you focus on, you create. So if someone's saying, I can't find vets, I can't find nurses, their experience will be they can't find vets and they can't find nurses. So by shifting to a different question, well, how could I increase by 50% without decreasing my client experience? It will lead you to the conclusion that your business model is broken because you can't do it with the model you got. You physically can't do it. And this is where we're seeing, and this is getting into the practical side, what we're doing is a model which is literally you have one vet and you take away everything that they don't like doing, because that's what's causing burnout, and B, that they don't have to do. So you increase the leverage, more support staff to the vets, and as a result, they are not being under the pressure. So a little example is, and this has been around forever, but people haven't been in enough pain to actually go through and follow through, vets writing up their own notes. Now, there's some vets that are pretty good like me. I was pretty quick on my own notes, and others that literally they're just novels. And when you do a time in motion study of an individual and look at them and say, how many hours per week is someone writing their notes? And you multiply that out over a year, like it's talking days and days and days of just writing notes. It's actually weeks.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you enjoy writing notes?
There's a book called Burnout. It's written by, he's a professor of psychology at Armidale University.
Gordon Parker, we had him on the podcast.
You had him, yeah, Gordon Parker. Yeah. And he talked about writing notes is digital notes is directly one of the things attributed to burnout. It's like, well, why don't we stop doing it? So literally we have practices now that just don't write notes. In fact, I heard one of them saying the other day, I can't believe I used to write my own notes. Like that weight of not doing notes is unbelievable. And that's a little example of a different business model. By asking yourself these questions, you start stripping off everything a vet doesn't have to do, and that'll show you where the opportunities lie. Then you got to start dealing with, okay, well, how? Because when you say to a vet, you don't need to write your notes anymore, straight away fear will come up through the roof for that vet that I'm going to end up the vet surgeon's board. And that's what will come up for them. I'm going to get done. I'm going to get sued. So all these stories of fear come up. So then you need to go, well, how do we create a system that will help them overcome that? And that's pretty much a process of bringing in and training someone up, that it's trust is built over a period of time, that you have someone in your consult rooms that over a period of time, they write and do the notes the way that you want to. And we actually film vets in consult. And when you see this working, it's just a beautiful thing. They're talking, notes are being written. So by the time they've finished their consult, they've finished the consult. They're done. And they can move on the next without this weight in my head of, oh, I've got to write those notes up.
I think we have people's attention. I think there's a lot of vets listening to this going, wait. How can you help me to not write notes anymore? If they're anything like me, it is, I will literally, towards the end of a consulting stint, go, I don't want to see another consult. Not because I don't want to do the work, but I just don't want more notes to go do after.
Yeah, we tested it. So vets what I call a darling industry. And essentially that means that you go and talk to how many people would say, oh, you're a vet. My gosh, you're so lucky. You've got the most wonderful job. It's amazing. And so there's this whole massive cohort of highly trained, highly intelligent people that would give their left arm to come and work in a vet practice. And what we're seeing post-COVID is a lot of people are going, the great migration instead of the great resignation, they call it the great migration, is people moving. They're going, you know what? I just want to do what I really love, want to really do. And so we started testing this to pull in what we call these veterinary liaisons. So there were people that didn't want to be a vet nurse because they're in short supply, because vet nurses often is involved in some pretty icky stuff. And they didn't want to be vets because that just takes too long, but they want to work in the veterinary profession. And these vet liaisons are the ones that you bring in, and they're generally from hospitality and retail. They're very highly trained in client experience and in sales and things like that. And you bring them into a consult and train them up, and there's a process to train them up. And in the end, what it means is the vet can pretty much, the rapport building can be done by someone else, not the vet. Now, the emotional, as you know, building rapport with people, and you're doing it time after time after time, that will sap your energy and that will reduce your longevity as a consulting vet. But the client needs it to have a great experience. What if you could have someone else do that for you? And the vet's pretty much, hey, great to see you again. And that's your rapport building. Someone else has asked about the kids, the holidays, all the rest. Someone else has done the basic TPR. Someone's got a basic history. So the vet's coming in and can really do the vet bit, the diagnosis. Okay, here's what's going on. This is what we're going to do. The talking about money, the booking them back in, even the explaining some of the procedures doesn't have to be done by a vet. So you must watch, the lines and go, okay, what's legally they can and can't do. But when we have a look, vets, there's probably 60% of what vets do they actually don't need to do. So when you take it off them and let someone else do this, and these are the people, they just jump in and they love the industry, but they're so highly trained in client experience, they actually get a better consult, the client. What it means is that the vet can see 2 to 3 times as many people and actually feel less cooked. And this is not my theory. This is from talking to practices who are using this right now and going, oh my gosh, it's a game changer. The word game changer I hear so many times. I heard a mate of mine who put it in a practice, and he goes, and then he had to drive. He drove down to see me. It was like a 7-hour drive, and he got there at midnight. And I said, wow, how'd you feel driving that after days consulting? And he went, you know what? I just wasn't tired. It was incredible. So there's the solutions are right there. But as humans, we don't look for solutions until we're uncomfortable. And that's why I think right now, so I think it's the biggest opportunity we've ever seen. There's this massive desire for people to have pets. If we can start shifting and changing our model, the clients will get a better result. Pets are still well being looked after at the same high standards, but now we can start looking after the vets and nurses because they're the same. Nurses don't want to be in a consult room. They want to be nursing.
See, now I've got that fear that you mentioned. I'm listening to it. I'm going, that sounds really cool. But immediately I have 10 things that come up. No, it won't work because of this. But where are you going to find those people? How are you going to train them? Exactly as you say. But they're going to make a mistake. I have to do my own notes because... So this is not theoretical. You know people who are doing this. You've tried this in some of your practices?
Yeah. What was interesting is we kind of created the onboard training program, as in how do you find these people? There's a specific ad that you do that if you put this ad, out, you will get absolutely smashed. We had someone turn it off. I think they were at 240 applicants. And so when someone says, I can't find anyone, there's no staff, they're just wrong. They're just looking in the wrong area. Now, of course, if you want to go and study 240 CVs, good luck to you. I wouldn't. So there is a filtering process that you'll end up literally, they have to call a number, and on the number, you then have a recording saying, hey, this is what the job entails. This is what we're about. This is our reason why for existence. Please leave a message, and then we'll only call those successful. So there's about 3 steps in it. By the time you get the 3rd step, you'll only be interviewing probably 5 people. And the feedback I get is, I just don't know which to pick. They're all so overqualified. It's not funny. And what happens is they're happy to take these big pay cuts. Like, we get people, as an example, there's a lady, she's actually one of our coaches. This lady, she's got a team, used to work selling Prada handbags. Now, those suckers aren't cheap. And I said, what's she like in a consult room? She said her client customer experience is off the chart. And she doesn't have any resistance around money because she's used to dealing with very high
if you could
value
sell, if you could sell a $5,000 handbag, you could sell a $5,000 surgery.
Yeah, she might even think there's some value in it now. She goes, well, there's actually a purpose to this. What are some of the, I'm interested, what are some of the questions that come up? Because you're a vet and you practice. When you start thinking about this vet liaison, what are some of the fears and concerns that come up in your head that would you go, oh, I'd like to, and the but is what would stop you doing it?
Yeah, you've addressed one of them immediately. I've gone through the process of trying to recruit people to help me with the podcast. And that in itself is really painful because you get a bunch of people. You go, I don't know how to freaking choose. This is so hard. It's actually an added stress for me that I just stopped doing it. And then the next thing is training. So you go, oh, there's somebody who looks enthusiastic. They look the part, but now I've got to train you. That's exhausting. And then the result's not what I want. So the first, and I think maybe I give up too soon as well, is that I give them a job and they don't do it to my standard. I'm like, oh, this is a waste of my time. Just never mind. I'll just do it myself again. So those are key things. The legalities that you mentioned of the notes would be a big, if you save it to somebody else, how do you handle that? Because you still obviously have to check your notes.
Yes.
That's going to be a key thing.
Yeah. So you're responsible for them. Don't get me wrong. If you go to the vet surgeon's board, they're your notes. But there's no one says you need to write them. So there's all sorts of different ways. Some people, speak to a dictaphone sort of thing and have them retyped. You can even get done offshore. Some are using voice to text. Most of them actually finding they're having someone in the consult room because it keeps that kind of flow. So while you're doing someone comes and does the first bit and then while you're talking, they're typing up your notes. Most vets will say what I do, I scan through and I go, yep, that looks fine. No, change this, change that. What happens is when you're working with someone consistently over a period of time, and it might be 3 months, you'll be able to look and go, I'm comfortable with them, I'm comfortable. So it is that trust is learned, one little bit at a time. I think that when you bring a new concept in, the concept sounds great and you like the outcome of it. It's the pain of the bringing that system into the business that I think often stops people doing it. So those sort of things that came up for you, like, oh, what if they get it wrong? Well, they will get it wrong. Like, it's not a maybe, that's a guarantee. But how did you get to be good at podcasting? You started and you just got better and better over time. So I always look at it as, this is the process of perturbation. It's literally you go, right, I'm going to bring it in and it's going to be pretty ugly. It's not going to work well. If someone brings it in and wants it perfect from day one, they'll never start because it's like walking. The first step you took, I hate to tell you, Hubert, it didn't work out that well. You went arse over turkey and everyone clapped you for having a go and then you had another go. And it's the same process of bringing any of these in. So I think you want to be clear and go, does the concept make sense? Yes. Am I committed? Yes. Okay. I'm prepared to give this, 6 months of just test and measure and let it evolve and develop in my business. We're sort of reaching out. So overseas, obviously in Canada and the US, we've got people running programs over there that we do, and they're getting the same results they do in Australia. So we said, okay, rather than me do the sort of sales calls over there, I've got a guy in Canada doing it. He's been going for 3 months with leads and hasn't booked a single. And no, he booked one. He's booked his first conversation after 3 months. Now, most people will quit before that because they go, this is not working. I guess because I've tried so much stuff, I understand that to bring a new idea in takes time, takes energy, but when it's in, it's fully worth it. So I think you have to know it's going to be painful. It's going to take you some time in training. It's going to be uncomfortable and a bit of a pain in the neck. But as long as you're sure of the outcome and you're committed to it, you'll find a way. You'll find a way.
My last criticism is actually when you said the other person, the liaison, can do the connection bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when I do these interviews and vets I chat to, so many of the ones who are still in and still enjoying it 20, 30 years beyond, if you ask them, why do you like it? They go, I love that human connection.
Yeah.
So I think they, to some degree, I go, well, you don't want to lose the opportunity to connect with your clients, because that is, and it's funny because you speak to, especially young vets, will go, like if you say to them, when we had COVID, for example, when we had the initial lockdowns and we had to remove the clients, I had a bunch of vets who said, oh, it's the best thing ever. No clients in the building. I can just focus on my patient, which really puzzled me, because you have that. And that's often a younger vet thing to go, the clients are exhausting. Those interactions are exhausting. They're draining. And then on the other end, the ones who are still sticking it out go, that's what I do it for now, because I have these connections.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, so we've actually tested this and we ask clients, hey, do you prefer just seeing the vet or do you like seeing just the nurses? A lot of the time, they're actually happier, believe it or not, speaking to not the vet. Now, don't take that personally, Hubert. I'm sure you're very different. But this comes back to ego, and it comes back to what's your why. So when I say to someone in a business, okay, why are you in business? Why are you running a practice? Now, if it's because I want to have great rapport with my clients, awesome. Mm-hmm. And you must have great rapport with your clients. Well, trust me, your practice ain't going to go so well. But believe it or not, the asset we call the emotional asset, if you're relying upon the vet creating the emotional asset with a client all the time, you are limited and you will burn out. That's what I'm saying. The model's cooked because the vet's having to do it. Now, I'm still saying that you have someone else sort of just spending a bit of time going through and building that rapport. But then when the vet comes in, it's still like, hey, it's so good to see you, Mary. Awesome. What's going on with Josie today? Awesome. Yeah. You're still going to have that bit, but it's just less energy output that you need to do. A lot of vets, because as scientists, tend to be introverts. And so being in a consult room, it's just sucking energy from them left, right, and center. I'm an extrovert and I get a kick out of talking. But after 50 consults, I'd be happy to come in and smile and say, awesome to see you. Okay, I'm happy to come and get to the chase. Yeah. I'm still going to have that rapport. But it doesn't have to be the vet doing it, because that's the bit that's part of it. Like you take notes and rapport building off. That's the bit that's cooking them. You can walk into a consult room. 9 times out of 10, you can probably look at an animal within 10 seconds. You know what's wrong with it. You know how you're going to treat it. But there's this whole shake and dice we're doing in developing rapport. The client still needs a 10 out of 10 experience. It just doesn't have to all sit on a vet to provide that experience.
It's a very good point. The exhausting bit is that initial trust building. Once the conversation's going nicely, then it's comfortable.
Yeah.
But it's that icebreaker, because it's literally like, it's almost like speed dating. You see new people all the time, and they have to trust you really quickly to make important decisions.
Yeah.
And that is exhausting. You're right. That is, by the end of a consult shift, you're cooked because of that.
I think there's another viewpoint that I've seen why I think it's important that the relationship asset doesn't sit with the vet. Because of social media, you'll see some vets, they've got some pretty big followings on their Facebook groups and things, Facebook, yeah? And I've watched this happen in a business. The vet left and went to another practice. Within 3 months, 30% of the clientele had shifted to the new business. Why? He put 2 posts on his Facebook group. Hey, I'm working different business now. That's what happens when the emotional asset sits with an individual. The emotional asset wants to sit with the business, not with an individual. Because what can happen then, and I look, okay, let's be honest, I'm talking from a business owner's perspective here. As an employed, someone working with employment, to be able to build up that, it gives you it probably becomes a very big sales point. Hey, I'm going to bring X amount of clients with me. So it goes 2 ways. But from a business perspective, I'd want to protect the asset so that when someone goes and moves, then I can control that. I can manage the PR on that, as opposed to someone else just putting a post and literally this business lost 30% of its clients. It was horrible. It's brutal.
Wow. So that is a good question. So that's a great solution for this painful time for business owners. The same thing goes to some degree. Well, I was going to say it goes for individual vets as well, which will be the bulk of our listeners. In a way, it's a good time, because you can start to be fussy. You can't start saying, well, this thing isn't working for me. I can choose to go elsewhere. But if you're at a practice that you like, but they're under pressure through this I can't take a holiday because we can't find any locums. I want to stick to the business. I like my job, but I don't like my job at the moment
Mm.
because of what's happening. Where's the opportunity for the individual at the moment?
There's something I've observed. So we do, we have lead magnets and we sort of basically get leads of people coming through Facebook, and I chat to them to see, hey, look, do you want a hand in your business? And here's what I observe. There's a lot of people that are downloading information that aren't business owners. They're receptionists, they're nurses, they're vet techs, they're practice managers, they're vets. And they all say the same thing. Oh, I'm just a vet. I'm just a receptionist. I have no power. I can't make any decisions. And I sort of would like to shake them a little bit and go, hey, you're an integral part of this business and you're spending your own valuable time actually finding some ways to improve the business. I would be stoked to have someone on my team come and say, I found a better way to do something. What about this? Because I often say, hey guys, why don't you take this idea to your business leader? You're under the pump, right? Why don't you take this idea and bring in this concept of vet liaison? Chuck them on a phone. I'll have a yarn to them. There's a whole training process. We can teach you. We can actually give you the ad. We actually train vet liaisons for practice. I have a program actually just train them for them. So because they don't have time to train them. So we'll go, right, we'll show you how to employ them, get the right people. We'll actually train them for you. I think it's almost empowering the individual to say, I'm not just employed here. I'm an integral part of a team. And if I've got a good idea, I'd want to feel comfortable being able to share it. And the business owners, if they got their heads screwed on, are going to pay attention to that. Because if they don't, what we've seen is that people will go, I don't feel listened to. I don't feel appreciated. Well, I know I can go somewhere else where I will. And now I'll go looking for that. Like to business owners, I'm saying right now, you need to earn the right. You need to earn the right to have a great team because they can bow out and they've got 1,000 options anywhere else. So what are you doing as a business owner to actually build that team and let them feel appreciated? And it's not always just financial. I personally, I think it's great that employed staff are being paid more. It has to happen. And that'll force us to change the business model because what vets and nurses get paid, I think it's terrible. I really do. And I'm happy to say that publicly for the level of knowledge and skill set. When we start treating it as like, okay, if a vet's making 150 grand a year, then a business is going to have to be a better run business to support that. I think that's great. And when we get everyone working in their zone of genius within a business and leverage them, you'll find it's actually more profitable for the practice. So these sort of wages can be paid and the vet's doing better, the business is doing better. And actually they stay in the industry longer because they're being paid better, but also they're doing more of what they like doing. So to someone who's listening, I think this is as valid to an employed person as a business owner because you're all on the same team, surely. Well, you should be.
Yeah, I really like this. This is such an important point, and it's a lesson I had to learn for myself because you see it, and I've seen it, and I've been it. That employed vet in the practice, and you like it. You like, it's a cool practice. You have team members that you like, but there are things that you don't like that can be better.
Yeah.
But you go in every day and you look at this thing that can be better, and you go, that's annoying me. They should do this. We should do this and this, but you don't ever take responsibility for that or accountability of any sort. It'll drive you nuts because eventually it'll breed resentment, and you'll go,
Yes.
I can't work here anymore. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find another practice. But the same shit's gonna happen in the other practice, by the way, probably. And B, it's a missed opportunity. If you identify that area that can be better as an employed vet, as you say, I mean, you have generally vet clinics are small businesses, so this poor practice owner is probably struggling to just run it the way it is, never mind growing or changing or anything like that. If you go to them and say, I have this idea, this is how we can do it better, I think this could make us more money or give us better customer service or something, I will help you institute it, this is how you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
What a missed opportunity. People bitch about the salaries and then they go, well, I want to earn more. And then the default answer is, well, then you should produce more. So you should charge more, or you should do more surgeries or sell more flea products or something. Instead of saying, well, how else can I add value to this business?
Yeah.
And then take some of that value, bring it to me. So no, I love that you say this. It's so cool. People do still miss it. I had an ad from one of our sponsors that genuinely would. That was a fantastic deal that will save a practice tens and tens of thousands of dollars a year. And I said on the ad, if you're a vet, you're not the owner, go to your boss and say, I'm going to save you $50,000 a year, but I want half of that money.
Yeah.
And I said, and then if it happens, please email me. I haven't had a single email to say that anybody's taken.
Well, I think this raises a great point for everyone listening is you're more in control of your results that you're experiencing than you're aware of. You know, you hear someone saying, I'm not happy with my wage. And it's like, well, what are you doing about that? You know, a business owner going, I'm not happy with the business. Well, what are you doing about it? It's what we call playing above the line, where you assume responsibility for everything you experience in your life. Because if you're responsible and you assume responsibility, that gives you the power to say, well, if I'm creating it, I can change it. Whereas if you say, oh, there's nothing I can do about it, you are completely disengaging from yourself and saying there's nothing I can do about it. And so I think the opportunity is that the opportunity comes around about every 30 seconds. They're like buses. But people get so locked, we get hypnotized on this is the way it is because this is the way it is. And what will happen is you'll stay hypnotized until pain gets so much that you start paying attention. And one day there'll be so much stacking of all those annoying things. You go, can't do it any longer. And that's when magic happens. You make a decision. I'm going to do something differently. So, you know, I encourage our whole team. I say there's no such thing as a dumb idea, because really good ideas are generally, they're camouflaged with a lot of hard work and a lot of unknowns. But the best ideas have not been my ideas. They've come from my team. Like if you can get really good at saying, where's the opportunity in everything, and just listen without going, that won't work because. We call them the yeah, but chickens. Yeah, but, because the ego wants to say, I'm not using it, so here's why it won't work, or it won't work for me. The minute you shift that perspective in your own mind, in your own life, and go, what if it did work? All of a sudden, you will open up so many avenues everywhere in your life. What if it did work? And what if I couldn't fail? Those two shifts in mindset will give you a complete sense of freedom to have a crack at so much more things. And I've never seen anything work out the way I thought it did work out. But the purpose of the goal or the outcome is not to reach the outcome. It's to get you in forward momentum to do something differently. Mm-hmm. You know, if we set a certain goal for an individual or for a business, you know, like me, got my financial thing. I got there. I was like, is this it? So I realized the purpose of the outcome is not to reach the outcome. It'll just put you in forward momentum. And as a result of that, you'll evolve and you'll find out what works. So sitting states, they say you can't steer a parked car. And I think that's what a lot of us, we sit here and go, I don't like the car park. I don't like the car park. Well, get your car moving.
I want to jump into another parked car. That's what happens, right?
Yeah. I'm back in the same car park. Yeah.
Just in a different car that's not going anywhere. So let's help people get practical with this. I wanted to circle back earlier. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the directed questions that you pose yourself. Yeah. Is that a useful tool in this? And what does it look like? I'm curious about that personally.
There's two. So in the process of manifestation, there's a couple of different things that could be really helpful. Number one, clarity. If I'm going on a trip and I get in a car, I just start driving and they say, where are you going? I go, I don't know, I'm driving. Well, where am I going to end up?
It's better than a parked car.
It's better than a parked car, so we're doing something. But if we know exactly where we're going, we're going to know how long we're going to take there. We're going to know what route we need to take. We're going to know how much fuel, how much food, all those sort of things. The next obvious step's going to become obvious. What I find is that most people are trundling along just day-to-day reactionary. So it's kind of like if we use the metaphor of a ship, I guess. You got a boat and it's sitting out there in the middle of the ocean, and if I don't have something to steer it with and I don't have something to power with, where will it go? It will go wherever the currents are going, the wind's blowing, the tide. It's completely externally controlled. If I then say, righto, now what I've got is I've got someone to drive the boat, I've got a captain, and I've got a sail, and I've got a tiller, I can now arrive at a destination that I want to, even if that's going directly into the wind. I might have to tack this way, tack that way, tack this way, but I can get there. So what's important is clarity is power. If you don't know where you're going and why, it will be very difficult for the right things to turn up. Here's why it's important. There was one of the greatest inventors in the last century was a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller. You can Google him, Bucky Fuller. And he had a saying that the principles will be revealed upon the decision. As in, how you do something will only turn up after you've decided to do it. I call it the disease of howitis. I want to do this. How? And you can sit and do how for years, but until you go, I don't know. I haven't got the foggest, but I'm going to find a way. I'm in. And when people all in, something magical happens. You get this alignment of events that will start stacking up to help you in your journey, and there'll always be the next obvious step. So the first thing I would say is have clarity around where you want to get and why, irrespective of where you are in your life. It will not happen the way you think it's going to happen, and it won't even end at the same point, but it doesn't matter. It will get you moving closer and closer to that thing. And I think the second thing is, and this might get a bit woo-woo on some people, you know those days that you have when we say you're vibrating at a high level, so you're just feeling great emotionally. You know those days you're like, it's probably after you've been for a surf hoover, yeah? You go for a surf, you're like, yeah! And on those days, what happens, so everything has a certain vibration. Obviously, we're all made up of, atoms and electrons and things like that. It's all vibrating at a certain level. This coffee cup has a certain level of vibration. We individually have a certain level of vibration. What happens is these things are all co-interrelated. What happens is at a low vibrational level, everything gets attracted at the same level. So to attract higher and higher level things that you really want, it only happens when you're actually in this higher level state, which is just, I just feel great. So one of my mentors that I work with, he said, you've got one job in life, is to essentially feel as good as you can. Because what's happening is you're actually vibrating at a certain level. So how this works is when you get clear on what you want and you're just feeling really good, what happens is you actually start attracting these opportunities into your life without having to figure out how. And this is tapping in. I mean, it's all backed with quantum science. This is not some sort of theological thing. This is backed in theory by quantum mechanics and quantum physics. So to help someone get what they want, number one, they've got to know what it is. Number two, you've got to have the belief that it can actually happen to you, because that belief is actually at a higher level emotional scale. You actually higher up this thing of vibration. So how can you feel better? Sometimes you just got to go on a bloody holiday. Like everyone that's going, I can't find a vet, you think about the vibrational level they're at, they're really low. Mm-hmm. I'm hammered, I can't find. I was speaking to a practice yesterday and they're just cooked. They said, we're both in burnout. But they said, we've just got to push through. And I'm like, no, you need to have a break. You need to actually do something. Go do some exercise, release some endorphins, go for a surf. Plan that time for yourself, because what will happen when you feel better, you'll attract more opportunity. And the things will turn up without you figuring out how. And then the third part of this course is then, okay, and then learn a strategy that's going to help you do it. And so I'm a big fan of not trying to figure strategy out myself, because I'm fundamentally lazy. I want the outcome, but I don't have to figure out the how, because there's someone who's way smarter than me who's figured out how. What I want them is I want to be able to download from them all their years and years of knowledge and help me get there. Like with surfing. I love surfing, but I was sitting out at Snapper one day and Snapper gets pretty crowded and everyone else is getting waves except for me. And when I did get a wave, I was messing it up. It just got me so annoyed that I went, get a surf coach, you doofus. That's what you tell everyone else to do. Mm. Went and got a surf coach and he showed me how to get up fast. I'd been getting up wrong for 30 years and I didn't know it. And this is the challenge. When you do things repeatedly, we think because it's sort of been working for us, that's the right way to do it. Someone shows me different. Within one session, I was getting twice as many waves. Now I surf more. I'm surfing better now. I'm 49 than I was when I was 20. So don't try and do it alone. It's just hard. It's just dumb. It's just hard to do.
I'm bad at that. The asking for help thing. I think most of us are trying to get better.
Yeah. Why do you think that is, Hubert? You've interviewed a lot of people. What have you come out? Why do people not ask for help, in your opinion?
You said the word ego earlier. I think that's a large degree to go, well, I can figure it out. I'm smart. I can do it. For me personally, some of it's being just a cheapskate. Okay, I don't want to pay somebody.
I get it.
I work hard for my money. What if it's a trust thing as well? Like, well,
Trust.
why do you, what makes you so special that you can teach me? Like, if I'm going to
Yeah.
pay you X amount of money, I don't necessarily trust that you know better than I do. It's easier with sport. Well, it's probably the same thing. But I mean, you say surf coach. I know that there are people who could teach me how to surf better. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, those are probably the main things that block me. And then again, the effort of actually doing it, of going, even when you realize, you go, I need help. Now I'm going to find help. How do you find that person that you can trust? How do you know it's the right person? I mean, I actually, for the first time ever, I am paying a business coach at the moment, but I'm still struggling with that. With like, oh, there's a lot of money. I hope it's worth it.
Yeah.
There's still a little bit of hesitation to go, well, I can figure this out myself.
Yeah. I think maybe I could give something that helped because it's a really common thing I see with people is putting their hand up for help. And when they do, here's the common thing they say: why did I not do this 20 years ago? And I go, what's been your cost of not doing it? They go, oh, I don't want to talk about that. And it's normally in millions and millions of dollars, from a business owner perspective. So I think the fundamental thing is trust. Spending money and trust. Seems like a lot of money. How do I know it'll work? So here's how I have learned to deal with that. And I've spent personally, so you know I'm not just making this up, I've probably spent I stopped counting at $300,000 that I've spent on myself personally in coaches, mentors, seminars, all that sort of stuff. Yep. So I've invested heavily. I paid one coach $100,000. So here's how I do it. Now, some work amazing and some weren't so good. Some didn't work at all. Here's my process to overcoming that. I identify, okay, do I want to do something? So, okay, let's say I want to get better at investing. Yep. So, which I went through this process. I want to get better at investing. Okay, great. Now, I'm going to go and find someone. How do I find someone that's good? You just start searching. You start ringing. Instead of, if you see offers to have a call, you have a call, a discovery call or things like that. Like, people just don't do that because they're like, oh, I'm going to get sold something. What about if it's
that's 100%? You're like, I don't really want to talk to you because you just got to do the hard sell, and I'm going to be annoyed immediately.
Yeah. And that's the challenge. People so I always say you've got to look over under every rock to find that nugget of gold. And so I went through, and there were different investing coaches. And what did I do? I spoke to all of them. So I spoke to them, and then the next step, and this is the single most important step, I think, if you're listening. This is the nugget of gold. If you take this away, if this is it, then well worth your time. I like to speak and interview people who have been through their whatever it is, surf coaching or, investing or whatever, and say, what are your results? I'm very interested in results, not how did you feel? What do you think of the course? Because they go, amazing course. What are your results? Oh, they're the same. Then I'm not interested in it because that person doesn't have the structure to actually shift your position, because what you're paying for essentially is certainty that you're going to get the outcome you want. So I like to go and speak to a number of different people. Now, you can get on testimonials. So if someone's got a testimonial on their website or whatever, here's what I do. I Google the person and I ring them up. I want to speak to them. So tell me all about it. And because they've got nothing to lose. So I like to hear other people who have been through that, whatever it is, that coaching that you're looking at. The third thing I like to look for is I always ask for a guarantee. What's your guarantee? Why is a guarantee important? What it is you're looking to see if that, the service you're looking to employ will stand behind their work. So whether it's a cleaning company or putting in a bitumen driveway or a concreting, I'm going to ask for a guarantee every single time. And then I watch. Now, if the person starts squirming, I'm out. I want them to go, absolutely. I want them to say, yep, go and ring all of my clients. Please do. Because that internal level of belief, that's when you know you've got the real deal. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people that aren't the real deal. And unfortunately, I think that's what happens. Some people have had bad experiences. But this is how I've overcome it. Because I said, the $100,000 I spent on a coach, guess what? The whole thing backfired. And I hadn't done my research. Yeah. Yep. I reckon I probably lost about $50,000 or $60,000 on that. But it was great because what it actually taught me is what I knew more that I was talking about than the coach. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I didn't see it as failure. I looked at it as feedback. But here's what happens when you don't go through. And then finally, the last step is there's a leap of faith. There's a moment in time you've done enough research that you have to go, I'm either in or I'm out, and make a call on it. I'm either in or I'm out. And I don't go, this needs to be the one thing. I just go, my rule is I want a 3 to 4 times return on investment. So if I'm going to pay someone, if I pay him 100 grand, I'm looking for 400 grand back. If I spend 10 grand on a course, I want 40 grand back, as in profit in my pocket. And that's kind of my rough, I actually work on a 10 times is what I'm normally looking for. But, it depends the area that I'm looking for. So the investing guy, I did this process with him. I interviewed him. I then spoke to a bunch of his clients. I then asked around his guarantee. And then I went, yep. And then the minute I'd committed, I went, it's now up to me to make it work. It's not up to them. I know the process works because it's working for other people. It's up to me. I own my own results. And I think when you take that, you're sort of ruling out a lot of the, things that maybe don't work. So maybe that's helpful to people.
Yeah, that is really, really helpful. We've got to start wrapping up, but I'm not done yet. Sorry. This is from right at the start. I'm curious about, you talked about the primary question. No, 2 things. Yeah, let's do the primary question first. How do you discover the primary question? How do you find out what your primary question is?
So the primary question is something, and obviously I need to give credit. This is a Tony Robbins concept, so it's his. I learned it. I'm sure he won't mind me sort of telling people what it is. It's a question you are asking yourself all the time. You ask it across, it's cross-contextually. So you ask it in all different areas of your life. So it might be, how can I get them to like me? It might be, how can I avoid getting hurt? It might be, how can I play it safe? It might be, for me, it was, how can I improve this? So it's something that you're asking yourself again and again and again, and you can test it. If the way you test it, you say, okay, am I asking across areas of my life? Yeah. If you continuously do this thing, do you believe that your life will end up a lot better? So I stress test this and I say, right, how can I improve this? How can I improve this? If I improve things all the time, do I believe my life will end up a lot better? Yep, I did. And then you can stress test it another way and say, if I could never meet my primary question, what would life be like? Would it be horrible? So essentially, if you don't meet your primary question, that's almost death. So for me, if I went, I can never improve anything, like literally it makes my gut turn. Like I can barely get the words out. It's almost life's not worth living if I can't meet my primary question. It's just too painful. Let's have a little game. What's coming up for you? So while I'm talking, your mirror neurons are reflecting on yourself and you're going, I wonder what mine is. What do you think yours could be?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking, because you mentioned this when we chatted the other day.
Yeah.
And I want to know what the process is to find it out.
What's something you ask yourself quite often?
You said something, and I'm grabbing onto something I just heard, so maybe that's the obvious one. You said something. Did you say, are they going to like me? Or
yeah, how can I be liked?
How can I be liked? I think that's an important thing for me. I don't know if it's my primary question, but as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, that's there for me. Or how can I, let's flip it around at least, how can I not hurt them? You know what I mean? How can I? Yeah.
Which feels, so do you ask that, how often do you ask yourself that question?
No, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not the question. I said certainly consideration in how I do things, but I don't know that I ask it all the time. Maybe it's more, how can I help them?
How can I help them? Do you ask that? How often do you ask that question? Because one of these questions, like I wasn't aware. It was a subconscious thing. I wasn't aware that I was doing it until I went through this process. And I suddenly, like for me, I kind of dropped on me and went, oh my gosh, I'm constantly asking myself, how do I improve this?
Yeah, I do ask it a lot, especially at the moment. I'm trying to think as a bit of a lifelong thing. And it sounds like I'm trying to say that I'm so altruistic, and it's not.
Is the question, how can I help?
But I want to dig into the need of why do I ask that? So maybe the need is so that you can like me more. Maybe maybe that is the question.
Well, the need comes from your primary generator, your pain generator. So I'll use myself as an example. When I did this the first time, so I've done a number of times. The last time I did it, I'll share this one because it's a bit, it'll get people going, this guy's either full of crap or this is fascinating.
Yeah.
So essentially it was done through a process of hypnosis. You know, you're in basically a hypnotic state and you're going after your earliest thought, the earliest memory you've got. This is how you can check to see the pain generator, see if your primary question. So the first time I did this, I was like, what's the earliest memory? What's the earliest memory? I remembered when we used to live in Western Australia in Port Hedland, and across the road from our house was Spinifex, which is just that, you know, nasty grass that sticks in everything. Anyway, there were all these little tracks through the sand dunes of Spinifex, and my brothers used to go and ride their bikes over there, and they had bicycles. You know, they had 2 wheels. I was on a tricycle. I had 3 wheels because I was about 4 at this period of time. Anyway, I remembered one day, I was never allowed over there. One day, I was finally given the green tick. I'm allowed to go riding with my brothers. I'm like, you ripper, woohoo. And I can remember the excitement. And I can remember going and riding across the road. And it's amazing because your brain will remember every little, when there's something that's very high emotionally, your brain says, hey, this is important, and goes chick, chick, and takes a photo of it, takes a snapshot of it, and you can remember everything associated with that. So I remember going, and they rode down this hill, and I thought this hill was massive. I went back, you know, about 10 years ago and saw it. It's like 4 meters, like it's this tiny little incline. And so I remember they went down and they rode down over this, went down, and there was this jump, and they had this piece of wood going up over some sand, and basically they both went over their bicycles and hopped over it. So I come down and I'm hooting down, and there's one problem. I'm on a tricycle and it ain't that wide. So I just go butt over turkey. And I remember my brothers just cacking themselves laughing, thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And the meaning, and I remember getting up and feeling so embarrassed. And I thought, I have to get better. I have to improve because otherwise it'll result in a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. I'll be rejected. That was the first time I did it. And then I did it again. And I can remember, now this is where people go, I don't know if I believe you, but in the hypnotic state, your subconscious remembers everything. I can remember being born. And I can remember being excited about this life, this coming out, and I was just, this is going to be great. Like fun's one of my primary drivers, right? I was like, this is going to be so exciting. And when I came out, I was a little bit of a mess. So I had the umbilical cord. That was wrapped around my neck 3 times. You know, I was trying to choke myself before I even got out. My head, the frontal plane in my head had fused early. So what happened? My head was all oblong. I had one eye was about an inch higher than the other eye. So I'm coming out looking like this, you know, some sort of bad looking creature who's trying to choke himself. And the first thing I can remember when I came was looking and seeing this really worried look on their doctors' faces, like this look of shock on their faces. And it was so much like, it was like, I can't believe this is true. I went and I asked Mum, and I said, Mum, who was in the room when you were born? Like, and I told her where they were standing and who was there and even their genders. And she went, yeah, all of those were exactly right. And so it was like, I got this snapshot. And the meaning, I looked at the look on their faces, and what I thought was, there's something wrong with me. I have to improve. Otherwise I won't survive. So this is where your primary question comes from, is what's called a pain generator very early in your life. And when you understand your question, you can shift 2 things. You can change the meaning you put to it, or you can change your question. So what I realized was, how to improve this, how to improve that. It had served me, but man, I was just pushing things so hard, I was going to blow things up. Like as in I'd blow up my relationship with my wife and things like that because I was just go, 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 go. And when I learned to change that, it changed everything. It gave me a sense of peace that I was going to keep growing and learning, but I could do it with peace rather than by force. So as I'm talking, you're kind of going, what's my earliest memory? Have you got your earliest memory yet?
It's also to do with brothers. I've got 3 older brothers.
Yeah.
Actually, somebody else asked me this question once. I think it's with my granddad. I'm trying to think further back. I spent the first 4 years of my life in one town, and then we moved. And sort of my memories only start in the new house. I've only snippets of the first house, the pre-4-year-old house. But we had a pool, which again seemed like a massive pool, and and it's a very positive experience. I remember going for a swim at night with my granddad, skinny dipping. My granddad saying, "Let's go for a swim together." Then nothing weird, just we swam together.
Yeah.
I think that's my first, but I don't know how that influences me. I did love my granddad.
What was the memory that you put to that? What was the meaning you put to that? Have you got what memory came out of that for you?
That's a happy memory. It's like it was sort of a wild thing to do. We're gonna go skinny dipping. We're gonna go. It's nighttime. It's dark. Everybody's inside, and we're gonna go for a little connect and be together and do this slightly not normal thing. And maybe that's that I do live like that. I don't like doing things that are boring and just normal. But yeah, I don't know no massive emotion attached to it other than I think connection and warmth and love really.
Yeah. So if you dig around that, and some people just don't get it that easily. Some, like for me, it just popped out straight away. For some people, they'll wrestle for a while, but they'll eventually get it. The reason you remember that is because that was a significant emotional memory for you. And it was that sense of, at that moment, did you feel a bit excited, completely loved? Did you feel really complete? Because that's what fundamentally every human being is chasing as its primary target is, what do I have to do to be loved? Because when you feel love, because we are love, that's what we fundamentally are. When you've got that, you'll feel complete. You need nothing else. At that moment in time, you felt like you needed nothing else, right?
Yeah.
So if you dig around that, you're going to find you're asking yourself something essentially, what do I need to do to get to that moment where I feel that complete love again?
Yeah, maybe that's where it's not a need to be liked comes from, but how do I reach that in my relationships?
Yeah.
I know something that does affect me. Talking about my brothers is I have an issue with. I've realized this over time with being left out. And I think, but when you talked about you and your brothers and they could go cycling and you couldn't, I had that. I was quite a bit younger than my 3 older brothers, so they were the gang, and then it was mommy's little baby, and that feeling of don't leave me behind. I still hate that. I hate being left out. If friends go and do something and they forget to tell me about it, I'm really hurt by that. It really bothers me. But I want to empathize in with that. I need to feel that connection with somebody that I maybe had at that moment. And if it's not that, then it's not good enough. And then it bothers me.
So here's your homework to find your primary question. Just ask yourself, just catch yourself, go, what do I'm asking myself all the time? And it'll dawn on you, you'll go, oh my gosh, you'll ask yourself and you go, oh, what did I just ask myself? And it'll sort of pop into your head. You'll go, oh my gosh, I'm asking that a lot. So it often comes from the generator. And they call it pain generator because often it can be from a painful thing, but it can also be from a pleasant thing. And, it can be that it was so good. You're like, how do I get that again and again and again?
Amazing. I really like this. Let's wrap it up. You've talked about all these cool things and you've done all this training. Have you got podcasts that you can recommend for anything, whether it's vet or personal development that you love?
Rather than podcasts, what I tend to listen to is coaching replays. Okay. So like if there's someone that's, I'm in a coaching program, I'll go back and listen to replays because I'm looking for something specific to me. I do listen to the Tony Robbins podcast because I get fascinated with he's just interviewing people from a whole bunch of different areas, sort of like what you do, but obviously it's very general, and it expands your thinking. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the main one that I listen to, and I'm not like I read a lot. And I tend to read more than listen to podcasts, I guess, because I don't spend a lot of time in a car. I work from home, so it's pretty much,
So recent reads, books that you've read in the last year or so that were standouts. Have you got one or two?
The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, cracking read. That talks about That's a pretty fascinating. One of those things they talk about is your zone of genius, just working in your zone of genius. And that's what you do better than anyone else. That's sort of a concept that we use in practices. Getting everyone working their zone of genius will get people to stay longer, be more productive, be happier, and actually develop mastery. So putting nurses and vet techs on reception is a really bad idea, for example. So I think that's a cracking book. I really enjoyed that. I read that years ago. What's another really good one that I'd recommend? I'll tell you what's a really good financial book. And I just like finance because it's just sort of, it gets people going if they want to get ahead financially. It is the Barefoot Investor. Mm-hmm. It's simple read, pretty basic, but it just gets people around the concept of how do you become wealthy? Simple. Start saving, spend less than you earn, and invest the rest. And it just gives you some really simple strategies. So I tend to like giving people books that they can use something from, rather than just as this great esoteric theory. I'd rather have something that they can actually go, hey, okay. And like, well, and I love it. Those little ING cards, like you see those, you pull them out and you see people pulling them out. You go, oh, you've read the Barefoot Investor, and they're everywhere. They're like little viruses.
It is it's a little cult for sure.
Yeah. I've got my ING card. Yeah.
Gold. And then I actually forgot to mention this question to you, I think, but let's see how you go off on the fly. So you're at a conference somewhere and you have all of the world's veterinary new grads listening to you, and you've got just a minute or two to give them one little bit of advice about it can be life. You like life advice. Normally it's sort of vet focused, vet career focused, but you can choose.
Yeah. Really simple. Number one, whatever you focus on, you create. Whatever you focus on, you create. Number two, play above the line. I'm responsible for everything in my life. If your relationship's fallen down, if my wife's in a bad mood, I created it. Either it's vibrationally or it's something I did. Even if I don't understand how, if I just accept that, it puts me in a position of power. When the sheet metal factory died and I was screwed, my coach said, this is the best thing that will ever happen to you. I'm like, oh my gosh, why? He goes, well, what did you learn? He said, you created it. Now, at that point in time, I'm pointing the fingers at everybody bar Sam. And when I suddenly went, oh my gosh, I did, I owned it, it made me realize, well, I can turn that around. And number three is you are so much more in control of your life than you really believe. By being clear on what you want and knowing that you create everything, what is it you're focusing on? Sometimes you need a hand to shift where your focus is. So rather than what's wrong with this, what's right with this? Instead of what's bad about this situation, what's good about this situation? Look at what's going on now. Everyone's going, it's terrible, there's no vets. The minute I see people going to doom, I get so excited. I'm just like, wow, it's the biggest opportunity ever, because everyone else is looking one way and you're looking the other direction, and you're seeing things they just won't see, because your brain will only let you see what your thoughts are telling you to allow it to see. You show everyone brown, then you go thinking purple, thinking purple, and you go, right, what's everything that's brown in the room? You can't pick it up. You've seen it, it's stored in your brain, but you can't pick it up. So those little things, and last thing, and this is the biggie, this is what everyone should write down. Life happens for you, not to you. Everything is deserved. Everything is there to serve you. Whether you enjoyed it or not, it's there to serve you. If you look at life with rose-colored glasses and you look at everything as I call gift glasses, what's the gift in this? When the sheet metal factory died, what's the gift in this? It's a directed question. And what it does. I'll finish with this story. I had a boat trailer stolen. So we've got a house over at Stratty. I drive my Toyota down, pull up, trailer's there. And anyway, my wife was going away for a bit. So we said, well, look, let's unhook the trailer. We chained it to a tree. We then put a lock on the tow bar. No one's stealing this sucker. That's a very quiet little place anyway. 4 days later, I come back. So I've been over at Stratty. I come back. I've got the tinny. And Bron turns up in the Toyota. We got one problem. There is not the connecting bit. There is no boat trailer. Someone had stolen the boat trailer. And this is what was fascinating. My brain instantly went to, what's the gift in this? Something great's going to come out of this. And it's just literally, you can program yourself so you don't get that really negative, oh, damn it, this is terrible, I hate it. If you can spend more time in a higher level emotion than a lower level emotion, and you are responsible for that, and it can change so quickly for you, your results, it's just chalk and cheese. And when I watch people shift their perspective of life, their experience of life changes significantly. And that's what I'd wish for new grads, for anybody, is life's great. And it happens for you. It doesn't happen to you.
So that super positive point of view, does it get exhausting? Because I'll tell you why, because I try to be more like that. But then often other people don't want to hear it. When somebody's pissed off, they want to be pissed off. They don't want you to say, my wife says, in her family, they used to call it the glad game. And she'll say, don't play the glad game with me. I'm pissed off about it. Is it not okay to allow yourself a little bit of frustration and annoyance and go, oh, look, it's a human emotion? I don't know. It's because it's a challenging, like what was good about your trailer being stolen? That is just freaking annoying. That's just, that's a pain.
I met a really nice bloke. I got, I asked the person where there was a house right next door to it, and they had a security camera. So I went up and said, hey, look, I left a message in their letterbox saying, hey, listen, trailer got stolen. Look, if you've got anything on footage, could you give me a ring? And I didn't expect him to ring me. Rings me back about 10 minutes later and says, hey, listen, no, I didn't. I'm sorry. I've checked the camera. I'll tell you what, you can leave your trailer in our compound anytime you like. That's just unfair, someone stealing. So what was my gift? I went from one extreme of human behavior where they're happy to get an angle grinder out, a battery grinder, and cut all my locks off and steal my trailer. But there's great people as well. So that was kind of was the gift to me. In terms of feeling frustrated, mad, and things like that, no, you must feel that frustration. You must feel the mad. That's okay, because that's just energy. Like, feeling frustration is just an energy. If you go, I'm not upset, you know that energy is getting stored. You're some kind of bullshit. You're upset. Okay. So what I actually do is you actually go the other way. You exhaust it. So you actually feel more frustrated. You go, I'm so frustrated. I just want to, oh my God, I'm so frustrated. No, that's not enough. Go even deeper. Here's how frustrated I am. If you do this internally, here's what you're going to find. After about 5 minutes, you go, I don't feel frustrated.
I'm spent.
Yeah. And you can exhaust it. The cool thing is you can change that, but you are responsible for it. The minute you hand that to someone else, game over.
Let's wrap it up there. That's gold. Sam, thank you so much. We could go forever. I could have so many personal questions. We'll have to go for a surf and take a microphone with us. Okay. We promised you more details about Accelerate Practice Academy. There are 2 programs that I think are really useful. The first is the Vet Dental Academy. We've talked about dentistry before on the Vet Vault and about how many of us hate dentistry, but the reason for that probably being that we kind of suck at it. Sam has a program to change that. The Dental Academy addresses the dentistry problem from the roots up. Sorry, bad pun. But it extends way beyond that to be a complete mindset reboot around dentistry for the entire team. From the people on the front desk who speak to your clients about dentistry, to the nurses who do the checks, and all the way to the person resting out or maybe elegantly liberating after you've done this course, that nasty P4. The course has a technical dentistry skills section with a series of video tutorials hosted by master dentistry teacher Dr. Anthony Chiaffa, one of the only vets in the world who has degrees in both vet science and human dentistry. Anthony handholds you through a process that addresses all of the common sticking points that you have encountered and will encounter as a vet dentist, including a how-to function that you can access even mid-procedure, like a little dentistry panic button. But it doesn't stop there. There's no point being a gun dentist if you and your team don't believe and aren't able to communicate the importance of proper dental care to your clients. Sam summarizes the goals of the course as number 1, increasing belief in the why dentistry matters to your patients for the entire team. 2, technical skills, from hands-on dentistry to talking to clients about it. 3, business skills, turning your newfound passion and knowledge into profit and hopefully better wages, right? The second program that we need to talk about is the Accelerate Mastermind Group, or AMG. This one is for practice owners, and it's the full Monty, the stuff I ranted about at the start of this episode. This is the thing that takes vet businesses from places where people just go to work and can't wait to get home and eventually leave to look for greener pastures, and a place where bosses lie awake at night worrying about affording wages and how the hell will they be able to take a holiday or spend more time with their kids. And it transforms them into places where people flourish, practice owners and their teams. Sam says that it's 20 years of advancement packed into 2 years. But AMG is a commitment, and it's not something to take on without doing your homework. You've heard Sam, you know what he's about, but what about results? He said it himself. Don't get a coach without talking to the people they've coached. So I started the process for you by chatting to a couple of people currently enrolled in AMG. But before we get into that, here's the deal. If you need help, call Sam. Links in the show descriptions, or book a call at acceleratepracticeacademy.com. Or if it's your boss that needs help, book a call for them. And call soon, because AMG 9 is starting like now. It's August 2022 when we release this. So if you don't want to wait until next year to start the transformation, then don't dilly-dally. Then tell Sam that you heard about Accelerate Practice Academy on the Vet Vault, because number one, it means that I get paid. And number two, the words Vet Vault will be like a secret handshake that unlocks special privileges, starting with a free 50-minute coaching session with Sam. Now, I've done this over a coffee with Sam, and my head is still buzzing with new ideas and enthusiasm a month later. And Sam will give you free access to the first 4 modules of the dentistry program. If you're a vet on the tools, the one you really want is the extraction guide. Just that one module will reduce your average swear word per hour at work by about 50 to 80%. And if you're still not sure, have a listen to Dr. Frank Condon and Dr. Erica Kennedy, who are current AMG members, to tell you about their experience, what's good about it, and even who it might not be for.
We've just been doing 2 years of Accelerate Mastermind Group. We were in number 7, like the 7th intake, so AMG 7.
This second time we've gone around, we've included a much larger group, which includes all the practice managers and vets that we think have got leadership potential. And we've engaged them in the process, and that's kind of changed our lives, really, to be honest.
What was the trigger for you that you went, I need a little bit of outside help? What was the problem that you needed to solve?
The problem was we were brand new business owners, and they kind of don't teach you much about running a vet business in vet school, as I'm sure many practice owners have worked that one out, probably the hard way.
For me, it was a lot of years of doing the same thing and not feeling like we'd made significant change. And it always had this goal from when I joined of being a kind of unique business with happy staff and being well paid as vets, which goes against what everyone tells us. Paying our nurses well. I mean, you have really good admin and staff and nurses that come into the system, and then after a few years, they realise they can get well paid elsewhere. And so trying to change the structure of our business, make it a place that people want to work, making sure I don't become bitter because I'm doing the same stuff over and over and over.
We bought the clinic in July 2020, and chaos, obviously, when you buy a clinic.
Especially during the COVID pandemic when everything changes.
Oh, what a learning curve. But I just knew that the first 2-3 years would have just gone by and been a blur. And I just knew that we would be making mistakes if we didn't get on board with some sort of a business type coaching. You just need to be able to just not get so bogged down and stressed by the business. I know that being a vet, like a practicing veterinarian, is not my sole passion in life. I haven't always wanted to be a vet since I was a little kid or anything like that, which lots of people do. So I didn't want to just buy a clinic for the sake of buying a clinic. I had to do it for it to be fulfilling my passion.
Both the fact that we didn't know where we wanted our business to be, but also if we did know, how would we get there?
Yeah.
So we just needed to know more about running a business, and what we didn't realise, I think, was the influence that the AMG 7 had on our mindsets, which sounds a little bit esoteric, but has been very important to the 5 of us. It's sort of hard for someone my generation. I think I'm fairly open-minded and spiritual and all those sorts of things, but I mean, really, I've grown up, you just go to work, you work hard, and if you work hard enough and get enough things done in the day, you make a small profit at the end of the day. And I guess you start off doing the AMG thinking, well, we'll just make that profit bigger. But what was the benefit? The benefit to us that we didn't realise was the mindset and how that influenced our approach to everything.
AMG gives you the confidence to prioritize and value that time you're setting aside as a business owner, because your time is just hugely valuable. And I think you need to value it very highly. You've got your $10,000 an hour kind of work, and you've got your $300 an hour work as a practice owner. Setting that time aside is important. And yeah, that's what I love.
Was that a consideration for you when you were considering joining AMG, the time thing? I know what tends to happen, and again, we're trying to record this so that people are interested in getting some help, whether it's AMG or somebody else, to help them make that decision. The first thing that I think when I look at joining a coaching program or anything for whatever business is, fuck, I don't have time for this. Am I going to have the time to join the sessions and implement the stuff that I'm going to learn?
I think in response, and I understand, people obviously looking at this program and thinking, what, how am I going to go away for 2 days, 4 times a year to the Gold Coast or wherever? How on earth am I going to even do that? I haven't had a holiday in 5 years. I think you cannot afford not to. Like, that time away from the business, being in the business, looking at the business, you have to do it. If you don't make the time for it, you never do it. And it does seem like a lot of time, but everyone's busy and it's just priorities, and you really can't afford not to, I think.
Is there a standout mind shift change for you personally? Frank before AMG, Frank post, or during AMG? What's the difference?
I still have similar frustrations and impatience to get things done, but I think AMG 7 gave me more confidence, and I think that's the comments that I've heard from the other partners. We grew in confidence. I think this time round, we're much more focused. That confidence has helped us focus on certain things a lot more, and we're still struggling to implement change like every clinic does, but we've got more confidence, we've got more support around us, and we're more focused to get it done. So I think if I had before and after, passive before, active after.
Why AMG? You said you looked at a few programs.
I think the monthly coaching was, and having it like a structured monthly coaching, like it's kind of set in stone. We're going to go teach you how to do this, the list of things that they teach you how to do, and the tools they give you. And I guess just knowing they've been around for a while. I heard about AMG when I was a new grad. I worked at Stanthorpe Vet Care, and my boss there, Kirsten Witterick, she'd done AMG, and I really, from an employee perspective back then, noticed the difference when she started doing that program. It became a really nice place to work.
What sort of changes did you see?
I think the main changes I saw would be in the flow of how things worked. Made a huge difference. The other difference that I really noticed was having like those goals and the morning huddle. That really made a big difference. I think it's not always like a major seismic shift in what you're doing. And then also just having like everyone focused on one thing. Yeah, really made a big difference. And also like we opened up the conversation when I was a new grad at this other clinic about turnover and what actually is our goal for turnover for the month. And that back then, even probably more so than it is now, was quite a not discussed topic. Discussing the financials with your staff just didn't happen.
Yeah, we just don't like to talk about money in general in the profession, right? Yeah. It's a dirty word.
It's completely dirty word. And as a business owner, the idea of saying to your staff, look, we've made X $100,000 this year, this is our goal. And that could be really awkward for some people. Whereas I think AMG teaches you actually the benefit of doing that and getting everyone on board. And that understanding of everyone in your clinic of, we need to make money. Like we all want to get paid really well. New grads want to get paid really well. Nurses want to get paid. Everyone wants to get paid well. So it's important. Like we would, as new clinic owners, no way would we have ever discussed that with staff. And so I guess, yeah, going back to when I was a new grad and the clinic I was at joined AMG, I distinctly remember that discussion about monthly turnover and kind of where we were at and tracking that as a clinic. And that stuck with me. And that was great because then we all had a goal.
One of my ex-partners, if I could summarize it, I think he thinks that by being a vet, you make money. And I think sometimes that's wrong. And I wouldn't have been able to articulate that 3 years ago. I feel like I work pretty hard and I'm ethical, but I just didn't feel like it was rewarding enough. So I think sometimes those people might be just happy cruising along and not thinking too much about the standard that they're operating at, the profit level that they're making. I mean, we're a business, and we can say, oh, it's the lifestyle, or we love working with animals, we love working with people. And those things are true, but I'm a bit over that. That doesn't pay my mortgage. I think that's part of the benefit of the program, is that you feel there's confidence in being both compassionate but kind of ruthless when it comes to the profit of your business. I mean, we have these great people that work for us, and 50% of the vets are leaving the industry, and nurses are moving into human nursing or into administration and on 30% higher wages than what we're paying them. And you think, well, I want to keep these really good vets. Why are they leaving the industry? It's not because they hate us as a business. And why are these nurses and admin staff leaving? We really want to keep them and pay them what they're worth. So that's probably my motivation. And when you think about that, you think, well, actually, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing it to enrich people's lives, both their health of their pets, but also their own lives personally. And as business owners, we're trying to enrich our own lives. I've got 3 kids. They're all wanting to go to university. I mean, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but the reality is that we need to live in a way that supports the lives that we want to have. And I don't always think vets allow themselves to think that way. I don't feel unethical. I don't feel I lack compassion. In fact, I think I've got lots of compassion and empathy, but I still need to be paid well to make it worthwhile. And I think our nurses do. Some people are uncomfortable having those conversations. AMG's helped us all have those conversations together and think it's acceptable.
Did you have any reservations at all going into this process? Going, oh, I don't know if this is going to work.
I didn't have reservations. I'm very skeptical about it as well. But I think all of us were reasonably self-aware enough to know that the business wasn't doing what we wanted to do. And for years, I'd sort of struggled with different things like, we need to do this more, or can we do this? What about this? But never really getting anywhere with the other partners or with myself. Like I would have an idea, follow it through and think, no, that's not going to work. So not skeptical, cautious. I think in the previous times we've done things like this, first thing you need to do is increase all your fees by 30%. And I was kind of thinking that AMG would be a little bit like that they would just come in and say, well, the way you're going to go from 12% net profit to 20% net profit is just increase your prices. And I felt that's what I was probably concerned about. I was skeptical about that approach. So maybe if I think about it, we were kind of ready for something more than just a straight business coaching system.
Is there anybody that you think, this is not for you if you are X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some people that just shouldn't even bother. And that would be if you are one of those people that say they want change, but really deep down don't, or particularly if people are, quite defensive about accepting advice or being vulnerable. If you become really defensive about that, like, it might be the best thing you've ever done, actually, in joining it, because it'll knock those walls right down. There's some pretty raw discussions that can be had, and it's all, as they say, out of a place of care. And it's great.
There's a lot of stuff within the AMG that I find uncomfortable, all the mindset stuff, but it's helped me understand why I think the way I think. And I think those things make us a better place to work. At the moment, one of the big changes is the confidence we've got and the fact that our staff currently like working for us.
Which is, I want to say, it's not the norm in our profession. So that's a win in my book.
A lot of people looking at this program will look at all the great things and what it does, and then find out how much it costs a month. And that's a really massive hurdle for most people to sign up to it. And certainly as new business owners, it was like a significant amount of money for us to commit to. And it's a commitment. You've got to sign up for 2 years. You can't say, oh, we'll try this for 3 months and we'll stop. No, it doesn't work like that. Like, it's a fair bit of money to fork out every month, but you can't afford not to. You literally, it will save you 4 5-6 times what it costs easily.